What's up, volleyball fans? I'm Darren Tipton, and welcome to the VBAdrenaline Podcast. Our podcast, we will dive deep into the heart of the game, bringing you the hottest topics, prospects, and a buzz surrounding prep and college volleyball, especially the world of recruiting. In each episode, our crew will spotlight rising stars who are shaking up the national game. Plus, we will serve you the scoop on current events that have coaches and fans talking courtside. Tune in for the episodes that spotlight tomorrow's college stars, new trends in the sport, plus interviews that will keep you informed on the explosion that is volleyball in the USA. You can connect with us on social media, Instagram at VBAdrenaline.com_ and Twitter at VBAdrenaline. Be part of the conversation. Share your thoughts on your favorite players, prospects, and predictions by using hashtag VBAdrenaline. So grab a seat, volleyball fans, and get ready to dive into the world of spikes, sets, and serves with the VBAdrenaline Podcast. See you there. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's Darren, and it's been a while since got a chance to actually record a podcast, and excited to be here. We are, as we said earlier on social media, we're on location in Austin, Texas, where I'm at Haymakers Bar and Grill, and it's picking up now. They moved me into the back room. Midwesterner, this 80-degree heat in Texas. I'm not used to it in November, but I had to get out of the sun today. But they moved me into the back room. Today, it's a little bit calm. Tomorrow morning, starting about 7:30 a.m., it won't be. This place will be packed for the Longhorns football game. But this is one of the top tailgate places on the University of Texas campus, and we're expecting a really big weekend here. Vandy versus Texas football tomorrow, and then Kentucky takes on Texas in volleyball Sunday at noon. So big weekend here at UT, and we're on location, and so we decided to shoot an episode of the podcast since it's been a while, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So we thought, what the heck, we go on location and shoot an episode. Since we're talking a lot of volleyball, we got college postseason. We're right in the heart of conference play, which is what we're doing here. A&M and Texas are going to tip off in a few hours here tonight. You got Nebraska, you got Wisconsin, obviously one of the greatest rivalries in college volleyball. They are playing tonight in Madison. The Badgers dinged up a little bit, but they will give it everything they have in Madison in front of those fans in an absolutely jam-packed field house there. And then on Sunday, what has become a interesting non-traditional rivalry, and not a historical rivalry, but let's just say a rivalry that has become manufactured basically because of modern volleyball and the system of volleyball today. It has become a rather intense rivalry. And in the last few years, Kentucky versus Texas, and last year it wasn't a match at all, but it looks to be much more of a match, a top 5 matchup right here in Austin, and it should be an amazing match with, no question, 2 of the best teams in the country going at it, and 2 of the best coaches in the country and coaching staffs in the country going at it, and could possibly be a December rematch and an SEC tournament rematch, I guess. These teams could meet a couple more times later on. So it's something that I bought a ticket to months and months ago, and I just had to be here and excited about it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to start talking about the class of 2028 and dive into that. Maybe not specific names as much, more so a position breakdown for all of you and get into the depth and the breakdown of the positions that we will talk more and more and more about, starting really in depth in January, and talking about the recruiting class and also the state of recruiting with the way the game is changing. We will also give an update on the class of 27. We'll start to talk about what is going to happen, as there's some common trends out there, and we try and dive into college with the portal, and we also Bam Bam just walked by me here. It is Halloween. It is Austin, Texas, and things are getting a little crazy. So my apologies. Bam Bam just walked by. And anyway, so we are going to talk about the portal, how that may affect the class of 2027, and give an update on that as well. We are going to touch on and update our America's 200, how that has gone. We are up to the top 20 of that, and how that project has gone for us, the input and the learning that has come from that, and how we attack that, what we've learned, and what maybe fans have learned from that, as it's new to my knowledge, with something that nobody else has tried. And also on our social media feed, we see that there's on Instagram, another rankings site has popped up, and congratulations to them. And of course, they have a lot of followers already, and so we'll follow them and see how they do. So just what we need, another ranking site out there to throw in their opinion and whatever. So anyway, so a lot to talk about today and the episode as we go through that, and just kind of start to get caught up. We'll obviously in December focus on a ton of college and tournament and postseason action. We got the U17 tryouts going on for the U17 team. I was able to interview 5 or 6 of those young athletes, and wow, what a bunch of talent there. And so a lot to get into, and might as well start with that. And you're fine. We're good, though. We're doing good. Thank you. And so without any more, let's hop into it and see what we can talk about. First of all, let's talk about 2027s and just a little bit about the class of 2027 recruiting, what we've learned, what's going on, and maybe some updates from things you may not know. It tends to take a little bit of the back burner now. We're getting ready for 2026 National Signing Day, and 2028s are gearing up. 27s have really slowed down until January, when a lot of them will pick back up if they're unsigned. But let's talk about it. First of all, at the top there's some interesting situations out on the West Coast, especially with a couple of top 100, top 50s, and even an athlete in the top 15, where they seem to be playing the waiting game, because I know a couple of the athletes definitely have offers. And what I had both heard, and I had asked around, and actually had asked one of the parents, because 3 of the athletes that I'm talking about come from, let's just say, parents that have been through this process. And whether it be they didn't get the offer that they were expecting, whether it be they think they can get a better offer, whether they want an offer from a specific school, no matter what it might be. I had asked if, in essence, they are going through the process as if they were a football recruit, meaning we've talked before about football recruits wait until their junior year, right? And when they do that, they have another year to kind of evaluate everything. And last year I touched on, whether it was popular opinion or unpopular opinion, I felt that the group of athletes that had committed to the University of Oregon, and then when there was the coaching change and the turnover, they all decommitted except one. They actually got the best recruiting experience of anybody in the class of 26, because they all, whether they went back to Oregon, whether they followed Coach Ulmer to Kansas, no matter what they did, they were then able to take their time, and they were able to look around. They were able to take visits. They were able to get multiple offers. They were able to build relationships with coaches, and the pressure was put on the schools, right? And so they were not, the tables were turned, if you will, right? And the schools pursued them. They were actually recruited like football recruits are recruited. And I've been very open about this for the last 3.5 years. It's how I feel like volleyball recruiting should be, right? It's your time to be recruited. Well, for those Kansas recruits or Oregon recruits, because of the coaching change, they then had the time to open up their recruitment again. And whether they went back to Oregon or to Kansas or to another school, one went to Nebraska, they were able to take their time and decide. And I truly felt like they were the only ones, for the most part, who had the opportunity to do that, and really were not rushed. Okay? And what I'd asked about these few athletes, and they're just happen to be on the West Coast now, is that what these athletes are doing? Are they playing the waiting game because either they didn't get the offer that they wanted, they felt like they should have got offered from a bigger school, and they didn't, so they're just saying, hey, it's not going to hurt us to wait, so we're going to wait until January, February, whatever. And then what's going to happen is the transfer portal will happen, and some schools may get stuck and miss out on somebody in the portal, and they're going to, in essence, be short a player, and they're going to be in a tough spot, and they're going to need a 27. And so now they're going to look, and everybody's going to be taken in the 27 class, and now they're going to look and be like, wow, the best 27 available is X. And now these few players are going to look really good. And they're going to end up getting a better offer than they have right now. Now, it's all really complicated, listening to me just talk about it, but it was something that I brought up. Now, also, the athletes are kind of discussing and talking about have the means to do that, okay? So, but it's what ends up happening in football is they wait another year. It's also what we've talked about when athletes decommit, right? They decommit and then they wait, and they get thrown in with the next recruiting class. And so they go, and what happens is they commit from school X. Well, then everybody above them says, is this athlete who just decommitted is she better than what we have now? And so that athlete, when they decommit, they're saying, hey, right, I'm just going to use school XYZ, right? She commits to school F, and school XYZ is, in her eyes, better. Well, to them, it's an upgrade. And she throws her name back in. They look at her, and it's an upgrade. And to her, it's an upgrade. Well, they go back after her because she decommits and she throws her name back in. That's an upgrade. And she gets an offer, and she goes to a better school, and they get a better prospect. Now, for that to happen sometimes, a lot of stuff on the back end that isn't so positive has to happen. Maybe they have to cut a recruit. Maybe they have to take somebody's scholarship away. A lot of other things happen. But in essence, that's what happens. So number one, it's kind of long-winded, but it's an interesting situation. And hold on, let me just close my tab here, and we'll be right back. Hold on. Don't have a problem at all. That's all right.
I was like, oh no, he's so in the middle of it.
No, I started late. There you go.
All right, so I thought that was for you. Do you need a receipt?
No, not at all.
Okay. And then I'm going to send another server over to you. Do you need anything right now?
No, I'm good. I'm good till I'm recording, then I'll just wait a moment.
Okay.
So. All right. Have a great Halloween. Yeah. All right. So we're back. And so anyways, that's something that's an interesting situation with you, whether it happens or not. It's something to kind of keep your eye on. Moving on. What will the decommit situation look like? We just had a decommit from a Big Ten school this week. Will there be more? When will they happen? And what's that going to look like? How will that affect the class? And there's always a few dominoes that happen because of that. So what is that going to look like with the top schools? Where will she go? Whose spot will she take? Because if somebody's full, and most schools try to be full right now, they don't want to be guessing. People don't want to be scrambling at the end, so they try and be full, but then all of a sudden something comes up and you upgrade. Well, if you already spent your money, you got to do something about it. So what's that going to look like in January? All right. Word that I've heard from several people now is that it looks like there could actually be some legitimate coaching turnover. And this is something that I've talked to just because my upbringing and my background before doing this has been with, football. And one of the things and the talks that I've said with extra media and everybody wanting all the extra TV and all the extra coverage is, we've talked, there's been coverage on the pay raises, and that is awesome for coaches. That is, and you need that. But what they don't understand is when they talk about wanting more pay, like men's basketball or football, and they throw those things out, is look what's happened in college football this year. And that's so far gone. But they have very short leashes, and you win now or you're gone. And one thing I've asked people in the coaching world that I know is, hey, I just don't see a lot of turnover in volleyball. And I see a lot of programs that just have not won at all. And it seems that there's just no expectation on that, where coaches are able to coach forever and there's no expectation to win. So, yeah, they may not get paid the multi-million-dollar contracts, but they also don't have a lot of pressure to win. And what has happened is, yes, more and more coaches have gotten salary extensions and raises, but there also aren't a lot of short-term contracts. And I've just heard some buzz like, hey, this should be a program that wins more, or this should be a program that wins in everything else but volleyball. And I've even said it as I look at some of the Power 4 contract or programs, like, hey, they win in everything else. And so I finally just have heard some rumblings that there will actually be some turnover. And with that, will there be decommits? Will there be coaches moving on? When coaches move on, will they take recruits with them? Will coaches or will recruits that were committed to them decommit and go other places? So when those things happen, now you start to get into the world that all the other sports deal with, of the decommitting, of the poaching of recruits. We saw it with Northwestern a couple of years ago. And that throws a wrench in every other recruiting class, right? So to think you're all fine and good, you might not be. And these are things volleyball just has not had to deal with very much. And we don't like to talk about those sensitive issues, and the other sites don't deal with them. And maybe it wasn't smart of me to start talking about these things a few years ago, but it is reality. And if y'all want to go where you think you're going, and volleyball and world domination, and all these major TV deals, and all these TV numbers are going up and up and up, you're going to deal with these things. So you either ostrich it and stick your heads in the sand and act like it doesn't happen, or you can start to talk about it. And the fan bases that these are things that are coming, and real recruiting people, these are the things you speculate about. And it does happen at more than just one or two programs. And that's what recruiting is really about, because it happens, because athletes have the option now to do these things. So looking at what coaches might be leaving, are they on the hot seat? And it's kind of been taboo to talk about those things now. So looking into those things, those are what might affect the class of 2027 more than, hey, who's unsigned still, because 90% of the top 200 are probably committed as of right now. Then, talk about it if you want, or you can just leave it unsaid. But there's going to be another domino effect with setters. And you know what's going to happen, because whether you want to say the name or not, there's probably the best setter in the country is sitting there out of the game right now, and she's going to come back and play. And she's going to go to a top 5 program. And when she goes to a top 5 program, somebody's going to move on. And when somebody moves on, she's going to move on somewhere that affects somebody else. And she's probably going to go somewhere where there's a very, very good commit coming in. And we all like to think, oh, that school loves me or loves my daughter, and they would never do that. Well, yes, they will. When they have a chance to sign a Izzy Stark, they will. And that's recruiting. And those are the things, again, other places don't like to talk about, but it is real. And so where that happens and what's going to go on with that, and okay, well, wherever she goes, then what happens to the setter that's there, or the commit that's coming in? Because I believe she'll have at least 2, if not 3 years. And that's a really big deal, because a 3-year isn't like a gal who's coming in to set for 1 year. So if you have a freshman coming in and they're bringing Izzy Stark for 3 years, you're probably leaving. So, right, that's going to be a huge domino effect on the game that nobody's really talking about now. And what's going to happen there, because they have a 27 coming in or a 26 who's coming in, they're leaving. That might change the mind of a 27 that's coming in, that could affect a 28, and again, it's a domino effect. And so then they leave, and maybe then that bumps somebody who's committed at another school. And again, there just could be a whole lot of turnover because of one athlete who is extremely, extremely good. And again, that's not the college's fault for taking Izzy Stark if they get that opportunity, right? She's the number one setter in the country. So you got to keep that in the back of your mind. One thing we also need to look at with 27s is look at the top end contending programs. Look at their rosters, right? And the days of, other than Texas, Texas stuck with their incoming freshmen, other than bringing in Stafford, I guess, which is a huge piece to bring in. But they're older, right? The rosters are older. The days of doing what Nebraska did back with the dream team, that are now juniors, and just bringing in their own recruits and going with that just doesn't happen. And even them, right? Nebraska brought in some pretty decent transfers to go with them. So it's harder and harder to bring in multiple 3, 4, 5 recruits in a class and have them all plug and play. So looking at that and coming in expecting to play as a freshman, you got to be willing to wait. And I've done a lot of research on this year's freshman class, the ones that were getting all the publicity from prep, right? And the NIL deals and the most popular, and then came August, and you haven't heard much about them, right? You haven't heard much about them. They went to schools, and that stopped because they just didn't beat anybody out. So what they did in prep does not translate to immediate playing time in college, right? So 27s being aware of that. Just because somebody tells you that you're so amazing here, you got to earn it at college. And that's going to lead us to our next part. Lead us to our next part, I think, after we talk about our spotlight class, TCU. And TCU is just a great program, and I've learned a lot about Jason's program as I've talked to other coaches. I want to talk about a no-flash program. They just do it with great kids that a lot of them fly under the radar, but this is their class coming in. We have them ranked 13th. We have them ranked 13th right now in our class of 2027. They give us looks. High-end red on the PPD levels. They got one, Piper Chalinsky, their setter, out of California, the City Club, and just solid players, again, that maybe fly a little under the radar for some other teams, that they evaluate very well, and they bring them in and they train the heck out of them, right? And one thing every single college coach I ask about TCU is extremely well trained, right? And Jason, what they do, their staff at NTDP, they build great relationships and some of the best technicians that are there. And so when you're going there, you're going to get trained very, very well. And another one of those staffs that has to evaluate and hit on all their evaluations. But they're in the spot of that program on the edge. They probably need a big-time tournament win or two to get a little more national recognition, but they are right there. And, oh, by the way, yes, they are in Texas, so they have all kinds of resources around them, and in the Dallas, Fort Worth area, amazing resources right in their backyard. But TCU is our spotlight program, coming in at number 13 right now in our 2027 ranking. So what I told you our project was America's 200. And whether you follow us or follow our social media or not, we kind of tongue-in-cheeked it a month ago when we started doing this. It was our attempt at rankings because we were told we had to do some kind of rankings. And it's been good. Again, it was explained to a lot of people what we were trying to do, because it's not rankings like everybody else does, and it's not America's 200. It's not ranking the 200 best 2026s, and it was an idea that actually I got because of going to Dream Team Camp, this summer, and talking with DBK. And I think I've told the story before that I was like, what the heck are you doing putting these little 2030s with 2026s, you know? She's like, well, what's our program like? I mean, when you come in as a freshman, you're in the same gym with seniors. And I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's why you're the head coach here, and I don't know anything, right? Like, that makes sense. And it just kind of gave me this idea, like, let's make a big old ranking list of top prospects in America, and as if they're in one big old college program, and based on college prospect like potential. And when we put them together in a big, bold list, and we kind of went off their PPV score, we took, all the 298s, for example. But when you looked at them, you're like, we found flaws in how we had evaluated every year. And part of that was because we'd had different staff, right? One year, Mac Pedraza was helping me, and so forth. She may evaluate different than somebody else, which she absolutely did. And so that was one thing. And then, hey guys, and so what we learned was that. And then we also learned, as upperclassmen parents, right, it's understanding that somebody who's a year younger could be better than your older daughter. Well, that's what you have to get used to when you go to college. It's a junior realizing that a freshman could come in and take your spot. That's a tough concept to learn, but as you see in college, that happens. And fans don't care. Fans don't care if it's a senior or a freshman playing. They just want the best volleyball player for the team playing, right? And to be honest, a college fan would probably rather have the freshman playing if they're better, because they get them for 4 years, right? That's the way I always was. When I cheered for my ex-football team, I was like, well, if the freshman quarterback is better than the senior, play the freshman, because we get him for 4 years. The senior's been making those mistakes for 3 years now. Let the freshman make those mistakes. He might correct them by the time he's a senior. That was kind of our philosophy. So, but yeah, the America's 200 is, if I'm looking at a 2030 who physically is as gifted as a senior, but college potential-wise, they have a higher ceiling, right? They have 3 more years to grow into that if they're doing some of the same things as somebody 3 years older than them. When we put these together, and that's what you see when you get to see some of these athletes in a big gym setting. You kind of do that age gap thing where you're like, okay, yeah, she may be a little bit behind, but she's also 3 years younger. There's no way they should be this close to each other. You should see a gap. And when you don't, college coaches notice that. USA volleyball coaches noticed that, at NTDP, etc., and also competition-wise. And so they're just things that we talk about. And it also helped us with looking at how we do the evaluation. We found out that it's softer after a couple of years, and 215 isn't a 215. It was easier to get a 215 now than it was in year one, right? And so we need to go back to evaluating with the same level of criteria, I guess. And so it was really good. But another thing is, I think we see just that talent level. Even in 5 years, you can see that talent level getting better after 5 years. Just overall in American volleyball, that's exciting to see. You can also see class to class the strengths of different positions. And you can see a class that has a outside hitter group that is very, very strong. And then you'll see another year that it's not as strong or as deep, and things like that. But again, people argue and debate, and that's awesome to do. That's why you do this. But I tell certain athletes that have called and are messaged and complained, like, don't go. If you have something from a coach, maybe, awesome. But if it's just something from another ranking, don't come at us with that, because again, there is nothing any coach in America takes off any of those rankings. They don't. For the 100th time, yes, I know they have to repost them simply for likes their program. They do that on their social media, but they don't put any credo value into them at all. They don't. And I know you don't listen to any of that, but they don't. So I don't care what you were ranked. We don't care about what you're ranked in any of those. And when you show up your first day at that program, the coaches won't care either. You don't get bumped up on the depth chart because you were ranked number 7 in prep whatever's national rankings. You just don't. Just like you don't get bumped up because of where you're ranked in this. But don't DM me and say, hey, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I was ranked in this poll? Because no, I don't. I don't look at those unless somebody sends it to me. And if you're a high school kid and you send me your resume because you think I'm going to bump you up, like, boy, you better be really, really good if you're doing that already. Because that's not what gets you on the court in college. And for the 500th time, they are ranking you based on what you are doing in high school. Our evaluations are projections on what you will do in college. College projections are different. You can be a 5'4" setter and play in the worst division in your state and rack up 1,500 set assists. That makes you an all-stater. 5'4" setters don't play at school X in the Power 4. They just don't. But they will get you ranked really high in your state rankings. So there's a difference, okay? But we've learned a lot about comparing one class to another. That's really, really hard. It's also kind of fun. It's also kind of fun to project. And we'll hear about it more wrong. And I also kind of like that. I hope somebody in 3 years is like, hey, you only had me at number 87. And first of all, I'm going to say, okay, you were 87 out of like 8,000 prospects. That's pretty good, right? But second of all, I'm going to say, yeah, my bad. right? And we'll probably tweet about it if X even exists. So it's been a cool project. Top 20s coming out this weekend. Sunday night we will have, Sunday night as I hit the airport of Wilmington, Texas, we will have we'll release the top 10. So something fun to watch. All right, college update. Let's see the top 16, season notes. It's been an odd season. It has been a transition year after getting rid of that huge COVID class. There have been some ups and downs. The volleyball has not been as cutting edge, top to bottom. It hate to be the hater, but it hasn't been the highest level of play all over the place. Really hasn't. You got rid of a lot of amazing 5 and 6 year stars. And some of those 5-year stars were not the stars they are their first year. And you're seeing some of those people get replaced with year 1 starters, and it takes a while. So you've seen a transition. But competition-wise, the athletes are competing their rear ends off like they always have. The competition is up there. It's just the high level of play may not be there night in and night out like you have seen last year, because you had so many veteran players playing their 5th and 6th year. You don't have as much of that this year. I'm not sure if the whole parity story that volleyball is trying to pitch is accurate. I just don't think there's as much parity as they want us to believe. I think it's very top heavy. I think there's definitely the haves, and I think there's definitely the have-nots. And I'm not sure of a way to change it, especially in volleyball with the way the rev share is going. But I think you look at like this top 16, and that looks very, very familiar to me from last year and the year before. It's Groundhog's Day kind of list, right? Yeah, ASU has moved up, but SMU has gradually moved himself up, but they're a have. And there's no shame in that, guys. These programs better not be ashamed. They're spending very, very well. But their Wake Forest does not spend well. There's many programs like that just they don't have a Indiana for football, that Vanderbilt for football that just all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, that had been horrible for 30, 40 years, and just snaps their fingers and all of a sudden could win the SEC. You don't see that in volleyball. I posed that question at the beginning of the year. Who is going to be the 1-year turnaround in women's sports? Because I don't remember ever seeing one, and I don't see one here. I am really impressed. By the way, I do want to give a huge shout out to the Purdue, Coach Shondell and his Purdue staff. I think they have done an amazing job again, but with a complete roster turnover. Hats off to them for just doing what they do again. But I just don't see that. I don't know what Creighton spends, and I don't really want to get into their situation, but I don't see the haves and have-nots to be. I don't see the parity that everybody, I think, tries to sell. And that's my only thing with volleyball is I think we sell, and I talked to DBK about this a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm like, guess what? I know a lot of people watch Texas, Wisconsin, and Nebraska games on TV. I get that. What I want is I want the stats to come out and see, has anybody watched more North Carolina State versus Wake Forest on TV? have those numbers gone up? And I know, and I'm not being negative, can we show those stats? I don't need to see Nebraska versus Wisconsin tonight. And there will be a stat tomorrow all over NCAA volleyball's social media, and it'll be a bit at BTN. We'll have it, and their parrot will say exactly what they want them to say, and everybody in the world will say how volleyball's growing. But is NCAA volleyball growing, or are the 5 programs growing? Because at some time you're going to have like 8 programs left playing each other, and then what's going to happen to everybody else? What is the TV viewership on Northwestern versus Illinois? Is that up? Right? What is the viewership on that? What is the viewership on the lower third of every conference? What is the attendance like? I know Nebraska sells out every match. I get that. Okay, I get that. Well, that's what I think we need to be selling and researching and telling us that. Okay, I think we get it. And I'm guessing the Final Four, if I'm just a betting man, I would bet the Final Four sells out this year. And I would bet, because of the way it's going to end up, I would bet the TV viewership is decent for it. But that doesn't mean the Big 12, right, that Oklahoma versus Colorado. How is the viewership for that? And I think those are the things I would really like to know to see if volleyball is growing. And when we start posting those things, then we can have a real honest conversation about volleyball, because Nebraska's fine. And whoever televises Nebraska is fine. And Texas, Kentucky on Sunday, my bet is that match will be viewed just fine. And when Louisville plays Pitt again, that'll be fine. Those aren't the matches we need to worry about. Okay, Cal, right? When Cal plays, travels and plays the Buffaloes, that's one I would like to see the viewership on. And is that up from last year? And that's not being sarcastic. That's not being, that's just, what is it? And are we looking at those things? And our conference commissioners and, the coaches association, are we talking about those matches? And are we doing something there? Because all the preseason events, they're not catered to those programs, right? And I think we still need those programs, because that's what makes March Madness pretty cool, is when Colorado can knock off Texas. That's why March Madness is so amazing. It just is. And that's always been my question to volleyball, is what are we doing about that? And that's been my only complaint, is Danny and Nebraska have been just fine. What can we do to help Wake Forest, Colorado, Cal? What can we do to help them catch up? Because I think we really need all those schools to be more competitive and have more parity, and it'd make everybody a lot more money. TV contracts, coaches' salaries would be a lot more. And so that's what I'd really love to hear, rather than how many people are going to watch Wisconsin, Nebraska tonight, and how many people are going to watch Texas versus Kentucky on Sunday. So just my soapbox. And one thing, though, with that again, is those comp programs. This program's doing a really good job being ahead of the modern college sports and economics. But the lower rung, Are they ever going to catch up? Are they going to be given the resources to catch up? And that's a big concern. So, all right, before we go, talking about recruiting 2028 class, and it's a really interesting class with a lot of talent. It's where the talent is that you need to pay attention to. But number one, and I've addressed this a few times, and I'm not going to quit because it's going to be awesome. If you're a parent of a setter in 2028, good for you, and get ready. I think the battle for the top setters, and I'm talking top 10 setters in 2028, is going to be a battle royal, because basically other than like Penn State and Texas A&M, now Kansas, everybody else needs a setter unless they do something and just skip one. But think about it: Nebraska, Texas, Kentucky, Florida, Wisconsin. I know this up. Everybody needs a setter, and that means there's demand. There's also supply, but that means there's demand. And guess what? They're all greedy, right? And they all want the best, and so they're going to go after the same minute chunk of great setters. Now, there are great setters in this 28 class, which is why a few of those programs skipped a setter last year, but it's going to be awesome because there's going to be games being played, who wants who doesn't want who. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on, not to mention negotiating and NIL stuff and rev share and all of that. So if you're just a recruiting fan, I've been waiting for this type of situation for 3 years. So get ready, because there's going to be all kinds of fake news, fake reports on who wants who likes who. If you're a setter, just keep training, and get a good ally who is in it for you, not for the colleges, who's in it for you. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because all the big dogs need a setter. And like I said, there's 7 or 8 very, very, very good setters in this class. Moving down to the middles, there's top-heavy, great middles, and great character middles in this class. So I don't know how deep yet. We haven't researched the depth of the class, but I know there's 5 off the top of my head that are all-American type right away. So I think number 1's already kind of shored up, but there are 5, I think, that are legit all-American that can help those top programs. So a lot of very high-end talent at the middle position. Again, one of the better, maybe the best middle class since we've been doing this, and also very high character kids in that middle. They can't go wrong with it. So at the top, again, a lot of talent there in the middle. The opposites, same thing. A couple of the best talent-wise opposites, maybe the best opposite I've ever seen since we've been doing this. And then followed behind her at 2 and 3 again. The high-end talent there is better than the class above them. And again, not sure on the depth, but there wasn't the depth last year as well. So it's going to be better in the class above them. I'm just not sure how far down it goes, but the top 6 for sure are scoring higher. So you're going to see the top end very, very high at the opposite position, and a couple of potentially top 2 players in the class could be opposites. So that's going to be fun. Obviously, you have day 1 starters from the opposite position. We haven't had that again. So liberos, again, I've talked about this. I think it's the deepest class of impact liberos that there's ever been in our 4 years of doing this. And one of our newest, like I said, that newest pop-up rankings site that popped up on social media, they ranked 100 liberos. That's tough to do. They just ranked 100 liberos in the class. And even the former Division I recruiting coordinator that we're bringing on was like, what? 100? So a former Power 4 top 10 recruiting coordinator now, top 10, worked for a top 10 program as a recruiting coordinator for like 6 years. When I said, look at this site, and he looked, he's like, 100 liberos? What? So that lets you know some of these sites that do rankings, how difficult that is when somebody who did this for like 10 years for their job is like, we would never do that. But anyways, so this is a very deep class. I don't know about that deep, but I know we've looked at 25 legit that we thought had very serious Power 4 like year one talent. So we'll get more into that, but a very, very solid class, including the GO. So we'll talk about that libero class more. And then with the outsides, though, very, very small window, I think, with this class as far as like franchise. Your outsides are always your best athletes. You're, a very large class. Everybody wants that. It's a point scorer. Those are the ones who usually make the big bucks. It's a smaller window for those. And maybe why, as we'll talk later on another podcast, maybe why a couple of the blue blood programs did what they did with their 27 classes. And in the portal with outsides, it may be because of the way this 28 class sets up at outside and because of how talented 29 class is. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of second level depth and talent. And I'm not saying it's a bad class by any means. We're just talking, when you talk about elite top end talent, it's not as loaded at the top as other classes have been and as next year's class or the 29 class will be. So just looking at it initially, and that doesn't mean other athletes won't step up and other athletes won't be found, but that's initial thoughts on the 2028 class and that we've been able to take a look at. So that's some thoughts on today. And again, we're getting a little bit louder in here. They keep moving the Halloween costumes into the other room, but I should let everybody get to their fun here at Haymakers in Austin. They told me the football crowd would be here about 8 o'clock tonight, and they would get here about 6:30 or 7 tomorrow morning for the football tailgate. But again, tonight, if you're a volleyball fan, we'll get this posted as the matches are going on. We got A&M versus Texas. That's a natural in-state rivalry. They actually play for a traveling trophy. So watch that. We got Wisconsin, Nebraska. That's going to be a battle Sunday. Kentucky versus Texas. That's huge. It's going to be fun. So much talent on the court for that. The U17 tryouts are kind of wrapping up, I think, Sunday before they make their announcements. Follow that. Team USA's website's doing a great job this year putting out news and information, and a lot of state tournaments going on, so follow that as well. Hey, we thank you. It's good to be back. We will hopefully get these going every couple of weeks now, but good to be back. Follow our last couple of articles on the top 20 for America's 200, and let us know anything else we can do for coverage-wise. But Darren Tipton from Austin, Texas, thanks for joining us. VB Adrenaline Podcast.